Great to be with you again. Good to have John back. We were barely keeping afloat, but it's great to have him back. Let me tell you a story. This story's title is Chosen. The subtitle is By Grace for Others. If you want to switch off for the rest of this short talk, we'll see how that goes. Just remember this: chosen by grace for others. This story starts right back in the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth. He created light, sky, oceans, lands, plants, sun, moon, stars, fish, birds, animals, and finally, humans. Humans chosen out of all of the parts of creation to bear his image. Chosen not because they'd earned it in any way. Turn our eyes, we're going to go to Psalm 8, which is on the PowerPoint. This is what the writer of Psalm 8 puts it, hopefully. Ooh, keep going. There we go. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you set in place, what is mankind that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them. Yet you made them a little lower than the angels and crowned them with glory and honor. You made them rulers over the works of your hands, and you put everything under their feet. Chosen by grace. Chosen not, though, for themselves. Human beings were chosen out of creation for the sake of the rest of creation. Chosen to rule. Chosen to create. Chosen to care for this creation that God had made. Chosen to be God's representatives on earth. But as we know, like all good stories, this story has a massive twist in it, because humans chose to do it not God's way. Yes, they chose to carry on ruling and carry on creating and carry on caring, but they chose to do it without God. They chose to turn their back on him, and the relationship between the two was fractured. But God has a plan. A plan to bring them back to himself, to reconcile them, to sort this relationship out. A plan which starts with one particular man, chosen at one particular point in human history. His name was Abram. We know very little about Abram up until this point in the story. The only thing we know is that his dad decided to go on a journey from one place to another and got stuck midway through. This guy, we don't know anything, and yet in Genesis 12, verses 1 to 3, we read God saying this. The Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your family's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." Abraham had done nothing to earn this calling, this choosing, this blessing. He was chosen by grace. And yet his choosing is not for his own benefit. It wasn't to make his family great alone, but do you notice at the end? All peoples will be blessed through you. Chosen for others. Abraham was chosen to be a vehicle of blessing to others. A name change, a miraculous child born when his barren wife is 90. 90. Could you imagine having a child at 90? No. The story progresses. And the blessing and the calling and the choosing passes down this family's line until we get to the end of Genesis and we start the book of Exodus with a group of people Abraham's family, now the size of a little nation, living in slavery, in captivity in Egypt. But God has not forgotten this promise to Abraham. He has not forgotten his plan. So out of Egypt, God rescues his people, and he sets about making them a nation. He chooses this particular group, the Israelites, out of all of the rest of the nations. And we read in Deuteronomy 7, verses 6 and 7, these words. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you out of all of the peoples on the face of the earth to be his people, his treasured possession. The Lord did not set his affection on you and choose you because you were more numerous than all the peoples, for you were fewest of all peoples. But it was because the Lord loved you and kept the oath he swore to your ancestors, that he brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the land of slavery, from the power of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. In the next chapter in Deuteronomy, it's not just because they're not a small nation, they're a big nation. They weren't, they were a small nation. It's not because they were particularly righteous, we read, that God chooses them. He chooses them because he decided to. Chosen by grace. But note again, this promise, this choosing was not for themselves. God has not forgotten what he spoke to Abraham. This choosing of this group of people, these Israelites, was so that they could be a blessing to the rest of the world. In Exodus 19, we read that the Israelites are called a kingdom of priests. Well, what priests do is they mediate between two different parties. And in this part of the story, in Exodus 19, the other two parties are the rest of the world and God. The Israelites are chosen to mediate between the two. They are chosen so that they could reveal God to the people and bring the people to God. They were not chosen for themselves. They were chosen to be a living example of God's way of being, chosen to represent God to the rest of the world, chosen to rule like him, create like him, care like him, chosen for others. But they fail. And so the story continues through the rest of the Old Testament, and we have some high points and some low points, but eventually the Israelites get subsumed under ruling empires. They get taken over, their nation, they get back in their land, but they're ruled by others, and then enter Jesus. One particular man, God, stepping into the story as a baby. God choosing a particular family at a particular point in history, in a particular location, to step in as the chosen one. That's what Messiah means. That's what Christ means. And as he does, he is the only one who is able to carry the responsibility of displaying God to others. He is the only one who is able to be a living representation of God. He is the only one who is fully able to bring people and God back together, to reconcile this fractured relationship. He is the only one who is able to show people fully what God's kingdom is like. How to rule like him, how to create like him, how to care like him. But this choosing, it doesn't stop with the chosen one. See, Jesus, well, he goes about and he chooses 12 men. 12 men out of a particular community, living at a particular point in history. Men who had done nothing to earn this calling. They were fishermen. They were tax collectors. They were religious zealots, kind of terrorists of their time. One would go on to deny him. One would go on to betray him. Chosen by grace. And why? Why did God call and choose this small group of men from Galilee? Well, he chooses them to be his disciples so that they would be with him and learn to be like him. The word disciple means learner. They were to learn their teacher's ways. They were to learn to be like their teacher and represent their teacher to the world. But this discipleship, their learning, was not for themselves alone. Matthew 28, a passage I guess is familiar to lots of us. Jesus says, after he has died and resurrected, he says to these 12 men, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age." Chosen for the nations. And as these men learned to spend time with God the Father, as they learned how to rule like him, how to create like him, how to care like him, they were transformed daily to be more like their teacher. And they were to invite others to join them too, that others would become the disciples. And so we read through Acts that the early church starts to grow. As these men and the small community of people who were around them, empowered by God's Spirit, invite others into this community. Invite others to be disciples. We see this group of disciples spreading across the region, and churches are birthed. Communities of people learning to be like Jesus, to rule like Jesus, to create like Jesus, to care like Jesus. And communities inviting others to join them. And these churches are given the identity of God's chosen people. Let's read in what Peter says to a collection of churches scattered throughout Asia Minor, which is now modern-day Turkey. This is 1 Peter 2, verses 9 and 10. "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are a people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy." A group of people chosen not because they had earned it, chosen by grace. And if you read the rest of 1 Peter, you read this story that this group was chosen to be holy, chosen to learn to be more like Jesus, chosen to have their interactions, their attitudes and their relationships shaped by Jesus, chosen to demonstrate his way in this world, chosen for others. And that's the story of the Bible. This God, desiring all to be reconciled, all to be in relationship with him. The story of God putting this plan into action where he chooses particular people, particular moments in history, living in particular locations, not because they have done anything to deserve it or earn it in their own right, chosen by grace, but always chosen for others. Chosen that they would become like him and therefore able to demonstrate his way of ruling and creating and caring for the sake of the world, and inviting others to join them, that they too might come back to their creator. So what does this story then have to say to us now about our discipleship, our following after Jesus? 3 things quickly. The first is when God calls and chooses us, we did nothing to earn that. This invitation to be a disciple of Jesus, one of his chosen people, is not based on anything you have done or anything you could do. And isn't that good news? Because it's also not based on anything, and you might screw it up if you don't quite do the right thing. You are chosen. We are chosen by grace. This is the foundation of what it means to be a disciple. And so when we screw up and when we get it wrong, which we will do, our identity rests on God saying, I've chosen you. And you didn't earn it. So it's okay. We come back to that God when we screw up, knowing he is rich in love and abounding in forgiveness. Knowing that our identity is rooted in a gift that he has given us. We are chosen by grace. Second thing, when God calls us and chooses us, he does so fully aware of all of the circumstances of our lives, of all of the particularities that we bring. So none of them are a surprise to him. So let's not make any of them an excuse. God is aware of your family. God is aware of your marriage and all lack of marriage. God is aware of the children that you have right now. God is aware of your work situation. So don't make that an excuse to not go deeper with him. Don't let any of those circumstances be an excuse to not run after pursuing Jesus. Yes, it might mean that you can't do streams on a Tuesday because it simply just doesn't quite work. But God is the creator of the universe. So he's probably got a creative plan about how your discipleship can be formed. So ask him. If you're like, God, I want to go deeper, but I just don't know how with all of this stuff that I bring because I just have a crazy life. He's the creator of the universe. He's got a plan. If he can create the stars out of nothing, then he can come up with something that will help you grow deeper with him. So ask him. And finally, when God calls and chooses us, it is not for yourself. It is for others. It's an invitation to be a disciple who becomes more like Jesus, who learns how to rule, create, and care for this world, for the sake of this world. Because doesn't this world need people who rule, create, and care like Jesus? And it's an invitation to draw others in. I've personally been on a bit of a journey about discipleship. Probably pre-coming to St. Luke's, I was like, it's all about mission. It's all about just telling people about Jesus and loving them like that. I actually think our mission is discipleship, right? Our mission is to make disciples. And so part of the mission is my personal discipleship, that I'm becoming more like Jesus. Part of my mission is your guys' discipleship, that you're all becoming more like Jesus. And it's also our friends and thinking, okay, so how can we share this good news of being a disciple of Jesus with those who don't yet know him? Our mission as a church is discipleship. That's why we've given so much energy and time to thinking about it over the last few months. We hope that streams will be part of the answer. We know it won't fully solve it, but our passion is that discipleship would be the heart of our mission. Because our discipleship is not for our own sakes alone. One of the other things we're going to be launching alongside streams, we're going to be piloting something called 3s and 4s. Small groups of people gathering together to kind of do the deeper work of discipleship. People who would commit to each other. Some of you might already know about this, and some of you are like, oh, I'm really interested in that. Can I just say from the offset, if you're vaguely interested in 3s and 4s, it is not to be a nice little friendship group with those other people. That is not the point of them. The point is for others. See, I have a group of women that I meet up with fairly regularly. And we have a lovely dinner and it's all very nice, but that is not the point of it. The point of me meeting up with those women is that I become a kinder mum and a more patient wife, a more patient wife, and a better, wiser leader, and I become a more faithful intercessor, and I become a bolder witness. The point of that group is that I'm transformed to be more like Jesus for the sake of others. So 3 things. We are chosen by grace. That is the foundation of a discipleship. Secondly, God is not surprised by the specifics of your life, and he's calling you with all of those specifics. And thirdly, your discipleship is not for yourself. It is for the sake of this world, and ultimately for the glory of God. I'm going to pray and invite the band to come up. As we pray, would you like to stand?